What is up, everybody? It's Haussmann Comics. How are you doing today? Daredevil Born Again is upon us, and how cool is that? Now, I'm not sure who's in the first episodes and whatnot, but in the trailer we do get a quick glimpse of Muse, and I thought, let's talk about Muse. Muse is a Daredevil villain, more or less, created by Charles Soule and Ron Garney in their run on Daredevil 2016. Issue 11 is when he first appeared, but issue 10 is where his story starts. Just a few things to know ahead of time. Daredevil, obviously, blind guy, Matt Murdock, yep, got all that stuff. He's got himself a protege at this point in time named Blind Spot. I'm not entirely sure about Blind Spot. His name's Sam. He's like rookie. Basically, he's got a suit that can help him turn invisible. Doesn't help him turn invisible, it makes him turn invisible. And he's got a little shrine in Chinatown that people can leave things at. And somebody leaves a little invitation for Blind Spot. Blind Spot goes and checks out this invitation, and then he sees a giant mural just painted in blood, and there's a dead body, and he phones Daredevil. He phones Matt Murdock, and Matt Murdock contacts Daredevil. They're one and the same, obviously, but Blindside does not know that. Anyway, Daredevil comes to check it out. He's like, holy crap. Just the smell of blood is so strong. Daredevil, obviously, with the heightened senses, the smell of blood, he can practically taste it. He's like, holy crap, this is painted in human blood. This is nuts. And then Daredevil, he's like, I'm not really good at this kind of thing particularly, but I can positively identify, I think, 113 different people's bloods in there. And really, you're going to do that and say you're not good at it? That seems pretty darn good. Anywho, it's clear that something obviously sinister is afoot. In the next issue, we get this weird-looking Inhuman guy, and he's like getting beat up by some gangsters. He's relatively harmless Inhuman, but these guys, racists gotta be racist. And then all of a sudden, somebody jumps out of the way and beats up all the guys that were harming the Inhuman, and then the Inhuman's like, hey, thanks, but guess what? Obviously, it wasn't thanks. Flash forward a little bit, that guy's gonna die. Meanwhile, the owner of the building where the blood mural was, that guy's actually charging people to come see it as an art establishment. Daredevil, Matt Murdock, is working for the DA's office, and they're like, shut this down. And he's like, yeah, okay. When they go to check it out, the mural is actually erased or painted over or wiped up or whatnot, and it says, you're only as good as your last performance, and there's a new address. When we go check out the new address, we see several dead Inhumans, including the one from earlier. And this is actually just worth noting. At that point in time, there was a Terrigen Mist bomb that went off and created several new Inhumans, and actually, the Inhumans had moved New Atalan to just outside New York there by the Statue of Liberty, and that is of note because it comes up, and I just think that's really cool. It's 2016, so it doesn't happen as often, but that's that synergy I like, where something happens in several other books, and it's tying into these books, right? Nobody said Daredevil has to integrate into the whole universe, but there it is. Anyway, these dead Inhumans are posed doing mundane things, and it's another art installation by, we don't know yet, but Daredevil senses someone's on the roof. Someone's watching. So Daredevil runs up, and that's where we see Muse. He is a very, he's got a striking look, actually. It's plain, but it isn't. It's like red eyes and a red splotch on his chest that appear to be blood. Looks like the blood from the eyes comes down and combines with the chest, and he's just like, hey, did you like my work? And Daredevil's like, holy crap, because there is something about this guy. He is a void, a black hole of sensory information. Sense, sounds, like he draws them into him. So Daredevil obviously has trouble sensing this guy. Even still, Daredevil's like, whoa, Billy Club attack, throws it. Muse catches it, so he's fast. And then he snaps it, so he is strong. And he's like, dude, it's important for me to know, did you like my work? And then Muse throws a grenade to distract Daredevil and get away, but the grenade was just a flash and some heat.
All sizzle, no steak.
Daredevil's like, well, that's interesting. And then Inhuman investigators and Inhuman police and this dude named Frank, an Inhuman cop, who actually shows up a whole bunch of other times elsewhere, pretty cool character, more or less. They come in and they're like, we're investigating this now, Daredevil, so back off. And Daredevil's like, well, I'm gonna go to talk to Medusa. And Medusa's like, yeah, I'm not giving you anything. And Daredevil fights Karnak, and that's all actually pointless to the story because in the end, Frank, the lead investigator for the Inhumans, is like, I'm gonna help you out in secret on the down low. We just had a low-key crossover to get out of the way, right? Still, it was really fun to see. Blind Spot phones Daredevil and is like, hey, Muse is attacking a courthouse right now. Daredevil was like, don't go after him. You can't take him. Like, you're too new at this. And he's like, well, what do I do? He's like, just try not to let anybody die and don't get killed yourself. And Sam, Blind Spot, really takes that to heart. And when Muse makes his getaway with the judge, he gives chase. They end up down in the sewers, but he's invisible. But Muse has captured a judge, a politician, and 2 policemen. It's the entire scope of crime fighting, I guess, from the cops to the politicians to the judges. I don't know. He's like, but what inspiration do I need? What art do I need to make of these fellows? And then Blind Spot shows up and he's like, oh yes, obviously a vigilante should be a part of this. And they fight, and Blind Spot goes invisible, and distracts them enough for the people to get away, which is good. But Blind Spot himself gets captured by Muse. And then Daredevil's like, okay, well, Muse is a black hole of sensoriness. I can find him by looking for the void. And Daredevil just sits cross-legged in the middle of the street and senses so hard, you guys. He senses so hard he gets a nosebleed, but he does find that void. He finds Muse, and he goes to rescue Blind Spot, and we see Blind Spot tied up by Muse and whatnot. Muse's workshop is art to some people, I guess. Muse certainly thinks it's art. It's horrifying. Daredevil goes and throws the billy club, and again, Muse catches it. It's like, what? And then Muse is looking at Blind Spot. He's looking at Daredevil. He's like, what do I do? What inspiration do I have? And he says, oh, yes. And he frickin' like gouges out Blind Spot's eyes. That's Muse. Like, he is dangerous. Because he doesn't really feel what he's doing. It very seems like that. He's all about the art. He wants to know if people like his art, but he's brutally murdering people for their art. He just remorselessly pulls out this guy's eyeballs, and he's also very quick and very strong to boot. And Sam is like, my eyes are gone, but like, we saved people. Nobody died. That's a win, right? And Daredevil's like, yeah. Daredevil runs after Muse. They have a bit of a fight, and then Muse traps Daredevil through the room that had the 100 and some people that the blood came from for the original mural. They are all still alive, so Muse uses that to his advantage to make the getaway, and Daredevil saves the people. But Muse is met on the rooftop by the entire New Atalan police force. I don't know if it's the entire force, but a crap load of them, and he's just like, you got me, and he gives up. Daredevil's like, man, I want to fight this guy, but he's in custody. And Muse is like, guess what? I'll save you the trouble. And he just snaps all his own fingers because he's like, that's what you were going to do, right? You were going to break my fingers so I couldn't perform any more art. That's the punishment. So he just like doesn't feel anything. And then Daredevil pulls off his mask, and geez, he's ugly, which that's rude, I guess, but he's unattractive. He's just a man in a mask. And then he goes off to Inhuman prison. Is he an Inhuman himself? There is things that would say he's the Inhuman artist or he's the Inhuman serial killer, but then Ron Garney himself is like, why bother explaining it? It doesn't need to be explained. But yeah, I think it's probably safe to say he's an Inhuman, but not necessarily. Very curious. I don't think a lot of this stuff is probably going to come through in the show, but maybe they will. I don't know. I think maybe they're just going to take the look and the fact that he's very dangerous and a psychopath, but I really hope they go for a lot of this artist thing. This was the first time I read Muse, and I dug it. Then we next see him, it's a few issues later, Ron Garney, new artist. He's just in prison, and he sees Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, has become mayor of New York, and he's trying to stop vigilantes, Daredevil in particular, and Muse sees this on the television from his jail cell in New Atalan. He's like, oh, well, I'm going to break out, because I've got some inspiration. And then he starts graffiti. He's got Spider-Man saying spiders are people too on the side of a building. He's got Moon Knight, Iron Fist, She-Hulk, Luke Cage, all these vigilantes. He's just doing big pop art pieces on the side of buildings. And of course, right across from City Hall is Daredevil doing the Richard Nixon, I am not a crook. And then he's putting one up to the Punisher, and these two girls see him, and they're like, holy crap, you're Muse, you're this artist. Oh, let's get a selfie with you. And it's something that's really awesome and really creepy. We see the selfie, and Muse is just this red mass of swirly weirdness in the image, in the photo they took, because he sucks in all the sensories, a black hole of sensory things. So I thought that was a really nice touch because they don't actually mention that here. It just shows that in the picture. And then Muse is like, hey, you want to be part of my art? And he's going to kill these girls. But then some cops show up, and instead Muse just, like, with his bare hands, demolishes 6 policemen. So Muse, once again, very dangerous. And of course, Wilson Fisk blames that on the Punisher. So Daredevil senses so hard, but he actually can't find Muse. He's like, Daredevil is actually kind of tied up with Wilson Fisk being the mayor. He's teaming up with all his street-level heroes to deal with that. While Blindside, who is worth noting, got his eyes back from the hand. That will come into play in a minute. So he's actually trying to get Muse to find him, so he's painting over some of Muse's work, starting with the I am not a crook. He's just tossing green paint all over it, and Muse is like, come on, man, why you gotta do that to my art? And he shoves him off a building, which is actually anticlimactic because he catches a railing right away, and they have a fight. But, like, again, Blindside is not a match for Muse. Daredevil wasn't really a match for Muse. Muse is just kind of like calm and fighting, being like, hey, come on, I'm an artist. This is about my art. He's got him. He's like breaking his hand. He's ripping off his mask. And then the beast inside the beast is a hand thing that they've given to Sam. And Sam is like, oh, okay, yep. And he unleashes the powers of the beast and just whoops Muse. He really beats the crap out of Muse. And Muse the whole time is like, no, it's art. I am an artist. This is all great. But at the same time, Blindside is having this internal struggle where he's like, I don't want to give in to the beast. I don't want to kill. I don't want to do that. I reject murder. I reject death. And he overcomes the beast. Muse is watching this being like, wait, what is going on? No, I'm the story here. You're not the main story. You're not the main character. I'm the story. And then Muse is just so disappointed that Blind Spot seems to be the hero of the story or the main focus. And Muse, like, literally walks into a fire and just burns up. And that's the end of Muse for quite a while until a comic came out called Daredevil Unleash Hell. And it's part of a Marvel Red Band, which I think is like Max. It's like Red Band. But, there's more gore and stuff, basically, I guess. Only one issue is out so far, but so far it's kind of neat. It's Daredevil is Elektra in this one, obviously, because she's Daredevil right now. And there's an artist, and she's like doing some risque stuff that the art teacher doesn't like. And then all of a sudden we get this little wispy ghost of Muse, because at first I was like, oh man, we gotta have a girl Muse. Like, didn't really get to see enough of the original Muse, but then yes, this wispy ghost of Muse comes. It was like, hey, let's do this. And she's like, what? And then she kills her art instructor, and Muse is like, yes, I'm your Muse, obviously. And they make some art, creepy art of Daredevil, Elektra. And Muse is like, that's not the Daredevil I would have chosen, but it's really good. And then we see like where Muse was, and he's actually just chilling in hell. He's painting with somebody else's hand. He's just, I get to do all the painting I want. He's in hell. But then something interesting happens, and like we see a bunch of souls falling into hell. When a creative soul is rejected, when the establishment tells them that they're not good enough, it kills them inside, and a part of their soul dies. So a part of these creative artists' souls is coming down to hell. And that actually gives Muse the little piece of their soul he needs to join with them and go back up to influence them in Earth. And that's actually kind of cool. I might continue reading this series because I am curious to see where Muse is going to go. But is he going to stay with this one lady, or is he going to keep jumping from soul to soul? He's kind of just, he's a ghost that's going to haunt artists and make them do stuff. Anyway, that's been Muse. Hopefully Daredevil comes out and this Muse is really awesome in the show. If not, that's the whole history so far of Muse in the comics. I've been Haussmann Comics, and I want you guys to stay Hossy.